The Avalanche are excited by their fast start. The Montreal Canadiens negotiations with Lane Hutson continue, and the Winnipeg Jets hope to get their defense airtight again. We've got all that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the co-host of Locked On Avalanche, Chris Micieli. And Chris, you got to be happy with the 2-0-1 start. What's been sort of the biggest factor in winning and getting points in your first three games?
It's been a lot of different things, Gil. One has been goaltending, at least in the first two games. And it's been your backup goalie with Scott Wedgwood, because Mackenzie Blackwood, we knew that was going to be out for a few games. He's not out for a very long time. He could return Monday in Buffalo. So they knew he was going to be out for a few games. And Scott Wedgwood has come in, and those first two games has played exceptionally well. The third game against Dallas, a little iffy in the beginning, got better as the game went on, but he's been really good. And that's the big difference between last year, how they started, and with the goaltending. But there's more energy to the team. That was a big thing last year, was their starts were very just slow and a little bit lethargic. And for a team that's built on speed, it was very weird to see so many times last year. But they're coming out of I think it's been a point of emphasis in training camp and the preseason was to start games how they were finishing them last year. And right off the bat, let's just get on teams. And you've seen it, especially in that game against Dallas. Yeah, it went into a shootout. Yeah, they lost in the shootout. They get the point. But they were far and away the better team in that game. So if that's only game three. So if it took 3 games to shake off the rust and you look like that after 3 games, it's going to be an exciting season for the Avs.
I know he hasn't scored a point in 3 games, but how much does the presence of Gabriel Landeskog help this team be ready from the opening faceoff?
Cannot be understated what they've missed from him. And he's been around the team, obviously, when he was out for those 3 years. Maybe not so much in year 1, year 2, but year 3, he was around them a little bit more. And he went on some road trips with them. But it's different when you're in the uniform and out on the ice with them and on the bench with them. I don't care. I'm biased. He's the best captain in the league. And it just shows. And that could very well be a big reason, because he doesn't let anybody just skate by. And I don't want to say, like, because he's not there, other guys are not doing that. Like, other guys take leadership roles on the team. But it's just a different animal with Gabe Landeskog being a part of the club day in and day out, at practices, in the locker room, completely different vibe. And you get he's the calm, cool, collected, but the expectation from him is like excellence, where Nathan MacKinnon is like, he will get in your face and just call you expletives. And, they have this different ways that they do things, and they both work together. And when they were separated, you're just getting it from Nathan MacKinnon and not the other side from Gabe Landeskog. And now that everything's back in motion and everything is kumbaya right now in the locker room. So
definitely helps to have your captain back on the ice. How about the biggest offseason addition, Brent Burns? What has his impact been so far? And how much do you think he could contribute on the wrong side of 40?
He's like an extension almost, and it's weird to say that he's just got there, of Landeskog, because we all know Brent Burns. We all love Brent Burns. Like, does anybody really hate Brent Burns? Like, you can't, right? So What he does, what he brings in the locker room is just in the locker room, it's like lighthearted, but when you're out on the ice, it's all business. It's weird. Like we're 3 games in. It's like this is like in the NFL after 2 weeks, we all want to say who's the MVP of the league. And it's like, like he's been fine. I think, he's on a new team. His game against Dallas was maybe his worst game, which was also his 1500th game. But the first 2 games, like you can see what he's so. I like watching him play because he's just he's just an imposing figure, but he's like, I don't know the word for him. He's just so sure of himself. I mean, when you've been playing the same sport for over 20 years, your skill set, what you can do. And he's just so relaxed out on the ice. Nothing really seems to get to him. And I think that that's a good learning experience for a lot of the younger guys on the Avs. So as the season goes on, and a guy that's going to be with him, Sam Malinsky, is probably going to be his pairing mate for most of the season, who's a younger guy. I think he's 26 years old, but he's a younger, and he's only been in the league for a few years. When he sees that, like you wonder how much he's going to learn from a guy that's been in the league for as long as Brent Burns has. So I think as the year goes on, his impact will be felt. I think it's impossible not to when someone's been in the league for as long as he has and plays every single game. You can rely on him for that. And for the Avalanche, that's huge because, like a lot of teams can claim this, but the Avalanche have lost so many man games to injuries over the past handful of years. To have a guy that you can rely on to be out there night in and night out is huge in and of itself.
Martin Necas, 6 points in 3 games. Talk to me about what he's been doing so far this season.
He's had a rock solid start to this year, and that's really what you wanted to see from him. He's always going to be connected to Mikko Rantanen, obviously, and there is a section of the fan base that will always be Team Mikko, and there's always be a section of the fan base that roots for Necas. And I think if he can have the season that I'm expecting him to have, I think you're going to have some of those Team Mikko people kind of moving over to all right, yep, we got a good player. But I don't think it'll matter what he does in the regular season. For those people to switch sides, he's going to have to do it in the playoffs. For them, it's just like, and he's young, but he hasn't had a ton of experience in the playoffs. He's had enough though, where you feel like, okay, you got to step it up to the next level. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But how he's started in the first 3 games is, if there was one guy that could not get off to a slow start, it was him. He had to get off to, getting pucks in the net, scoring points, getting assists, being dynamic. And he's done all of that for 3 games, because if he didn't, we'd be all sitting here like the Avalanche just made the biggest blunder ever in this trade. Some people still might think that, but if he can play the way that we're expecting him to play this year, I think put a lot of those questions, I don't want to say to bed, but maybe take a nap. We'll say that.
2-0-1, solid start. But what's your biggest concern after 3 games?
It's a concern, but it's not like a super serious one, mainly because it's carrying over from the playoffs, and it's the power play. I think they scored 1 power play goal in the preseason, and they have a couple now. They have a couple in the regular season. And again, the progression in 3 games has been what you want. Going from the first game against the Kings and against Dallas, they only scored 1, but it looked exceptional. Jake Ottinger was otherworldly in that game, and if it was any number of goalies that was not named Jake Ottinger, they would have scored on I don't want to say all of them, but the majority of those power plays, because they were everywhere. So it looks good. They have a new special teams coach and Dave Hackstall. So they're this is like working the kinks out stuff. And you saw it in the game against Dallas, where it looked dynamic and it looked different and it looked good. Now the next stage is getting the pucks in the net. So we'll see if they can do that against Buffalo. I'm expecting that to turn around. They're too talented. They have too much talent on that power play 1 for it to be a year-long issue. But how I was saying how Necas needed to be that guy to get off to a hot start. You wanted the power play to do that too. It hasn't, but the Dallas game gave you some good vibes of where it's going.
All right, Chris, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you and your co-host on social media?
Yeah, we're over all social media. So on X, LOPN_Avalanche, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Blue Sky, on YouTube. Just search Locked On Avalanche or LOPN_Avalanche, and you can find us there. And then, of course, wherever you listen to the podcast, we're all over the place.
All right, Chris, thank you so much.
Anytime, Gil. Thank you.
Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've been putting off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. One thing I love about Monarch Money, if you and your significant other are sharing accounts, it can help both of you stay on the same page. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. It is great to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Canadiens, Laura Saba. And Laura, 2 out of your first 3 games in the W column. What's gone right most for the Canadiens?
So I think one of the biggest things is that they did not have the same problem as last year, where last year the players had come together. There were so many new faces and they hadn't built any chemistry. So, in this case, it's not just players that are back from last year, but even the new players that joined the team, like Noah Dobson, Zach Bolduc, et cetera, et cetera. They've been skating together all summer. Not every single one of them, but you've seen Ivan Demidov skate with Lane Hutson. There's been a lot of presence in Montreal. There's been a lot of skating together even before they were officially due to return. And, guys drop in, drop out. So they kind of had started to hit the ground running. And they have that maturity that they didn't have last season. They have the chemistry they didn't have last season. And I think the new additions are contributing to right off the bat. And you can't complain, really.
Talk to me about Zachary Bolduc, off to a great start, and what have you seen from him so far?
Fantastic. So far, 4 points in 3 games, 3 goals in 3 games. He has been a revelation, right? He was traded in the offseason to Montreal for Logan Mailloux, and it has not taken long for people to be excited about that. I know there's a strong contingent of Montreal Canadiens fans that were very firmly behind Logan Mailloux, really wanting him to work out. But now he's in St. Louis, and, that chapter is closed, and what a return. I know you can't expect somebody to sustain a pace like this, but at least in the early going, what Zach Bolduc has shown is that he belongs, and he has brought out a side in some of the other players that we're seeing that, it feels like they feel like they're free. They play a lot more free with him on the ice. His speed and his skill. I think we were familiar in a certain way, but I don't think we thought that he could be this good this quickly.
Gotta love that kind of start and what it does for the players around him. As the host of Locked On Islanders, got to ask about Noah Dobson and what is going on? The fans were on him in the preseason.
They were. Okay. So I think that Noah Dobson, like a lot of players, came back, and in the preseason, I don't even call it preseason anymore. I just call it groin injury season, because that's what they do, right? They come back after having been off for a long time, and everybody just tweaks their groin. So he wasn't playing full throttle. And the other thing too was that when they first traded for him, People put together their lines and their defensive pairings, and the most common pairing that you heard him associated with was with Mike Matheson, and people thought that would be an absolute disaster because they're both offensive defensemen who aren't always relied upon to be especially defensive. But that pairing has been incredible for the Montreal Canadiens. Honestly, like, we are watching it and we are not believing our own eyes how good it's been. Through 3 games, they are together. They have brought out the best in each other, right? And so I'm really enjoying this. I know it's not, again, there's going to be times throughout the season that they're going to break up that pairing. There's going to be struggles. What if the Canadiens get a return for Mike Matheson that they can't refuse, right? He is an unexpiring contract. He's a very serviceable defenseman, but they both look so good playing with each other. So good. And Noah Dobson has been giving us flashes of brilliance on the power play, which I know we're going to get into a little bit later on because the power play isn't where we want it to be, but just something about it is magic. In fact, on our show, we have a graphic. It's the Mike meter, and it goes from tragic Mike to magic Mike. And through the first 3 games, the Mike meter has been Magic Mike all along. And I really think that it is the Noah Dobson pairing that's doing this. It's this new lease on life that he has. He's talked about wanting to stay here. He said he would take a pay cut to stay here. So maybe they work something out, because this pairing, if it continues like this throughout the season, they're not going to want to break it up.
Talk to me about Lane Hutson. A lot of rumors that his contract extension will be signed soon. What are you hearing?
So I think essentially what had happened was there was a lot of talk about it. There's a lot of speculation about it. And there's a lot of nervousness about it because it's not being done as quickly as we want. However, yesterday, the news on the Hockey Night in Canada, Elliot Friedman said, both sides are saying that they don't want to talk to the media anymore because it's getting blown out of proportion. And I would agree with that. Every single day, people would be hinging on one word that was said in the reporting, right? And then now people are talking about his family's getting involved. And here's what I know, and I cannot reveal my source, but it's a very good one, is that it's just a matter of working things out. Nobody is fighting. It's not emotional. It's not emotionally charged in any way. There's no dispute. They're literally going back and forth on some of the finer parts of the deal, right? We do expect a deal soon. We expect it to be 8 years, in around the same range as Noah Dobson is making. If the Canadiens have to give up a couple of years to get a little bit of relief on the salary, I think they're willing to do that. So you might see a 6-year. But as far as I know, everything's fine. They just don't want to talk to the media anymore because the media was kind of blowing it out of proportion and saying that Lane Hutson was getting stressed out about it. It was affecting his performance. His performance is fine. Nothing's wrong. We all just need to calm down collectively. I think people are just kind of making mountains out of molehills. They're just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I have it on good authority that Kent Hughes is not stressed, and Lane Hutson's agent is not stressed, and Lane Hutson is fine. It's not affecting his performance. The broken sticks are affecting his performance. Everything's going to be okay.
All right, so you are now the unofficial yoga teacher of Canadiens Nation here.
Yes,
But,
yes.
All right, so what are you happy with through the first 3 games, and what needs work?
So I think the first game against Toronto was really, really good. The Canadiens lost that game 5-2. Unfortunately, it was a broken stick that kind of got in the way of Lane Hutson, not just making. I think he was about to pass to somebody, but he also he had to backcheck real quickly on his own. So that was one of the Toronto goals, and the other 2 were empty net goals, right? At the end of the period where the Canadiens still had a chance to win. But the Canadiens outplayed Toronto by every metric. They had Toronto hemmed in their zone. They were skating circles around Toronto. So I think if they continue to play like that, they're going to be fine. On the second night, it was in Detroit against Detroit, home opener, centennial season, but Montreal still beat them 5-1. On the second night of a back-to-back, because they had all those elements that work together, right? Like they kept clicking, and what they're doing is they're playing for each other. That game against Chicago kind of exposed a little bit of things to be nervous about, and that's what we want to talk about, getting better. They spent a large part of that game on the power play, and they were not able to convert except for once, right? So that's something that we do have to, as a team, as a fan base, we kind of have to not lose our heads about it yet. but they need to work on it. That's something they need to work on. So if you're asking me, like, how are they going to sustain? How are they going to continue to be good? They need to figure out their special teams. Their penalty kill wasn't too bad. It's not too bad. It's, you know, it's got a lot of guys on it that you wouldn't expect. Like Mike Matheson is back there. Alex Newhook is back there. These guys are doing really well on that penalty kill. It's very aggressive. It's very confident. I love that. But the power play is definitely something they're going to have to look at. And the other thing is that Martin St. Louis has kind of balanced his lines. He doesn't touch the top line, which is Slavkovsky, Suzuki, and Caulfield. He's not touching that. But the rest of the lineup is balanced by one guy who's really good defensively, one guy who's very fast, and then a playmaker, right? Which is a formula that's working for a couple of the lines, but it's kind of leaving Patrick Laine a little bit in the dust. And I don't know if Kirby Dach has fully acclimated to his line. So it's brought out, you know, Kapanen's doing great. Newhook is like doing great. You saw Zach Bolduc is doing well. So maybe there'll be some tweaking because he likes to roll the line. So maybe there'll be some tweaking on that front to make Patrick Laine a bit more effective and to kind of really allow Kirby Dach to attain that next level we've all been waiting for him to be a bona fide 2C. But so far, after 3 games, I can't complain about too much. They just really need to figure out that power play, and then they can work out that the line combinations a little bit later as long as they get that going. Because you can't, you know, they had, I think, 11 opportunities against Chicago,
wow,
which is a lot. It's a lot. 11. It's 22 minutes on the power play, but actually it was a little bit more than that because there was like a 5-minute as well. So they had a lot of power play time, and they literally just scored 1 goal. So that's a problem. That rate is not going to be sustainable if they want to be one of the teams. Like you're going to end up losing games by 1 goal and thinking that power play goal might have been the difference. So they really need to fix that sooner than later.
Well, we shall see. It should be an exciting season in Montreal. Laura, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
So you can find our podcast on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast, just like Locked On NHL. We're at Locked On Canadiens. It's me and my co-host, Ian Boisvert. And you'll find us on social media. We're on TikTok, on Instagram, and on Blue Sky at Locked On Canadiens. And you can also send us emails at lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com if you have any mailbag questions, segment ideas, you want to hear. If you're a Canadiens fan, please join us. We would love to have you.
All right, Laura, thank you so much.
Thank you, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays to increase my odds. I've tried player props, and I've even followed the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. So whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Again, place that first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. Go to FanDuel.com today. Check it out. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, Harrison Lee. And Harrison, a little bit of an uneven start for the Jets, but it's only been 2 games. What stands out to you most in the early going?
Yeah, well, this offseason was pretty interesting. The Jets, of course, you know, the big headline was signing Taves, which you're going to ask me about a little bit, how he's done. But I think the broader sense that I've had since really the start of summer was that the Jets weren't really sure where this season was going to go. You basically did everything you possibly can in a regular season. You've accomplished one of the greatest things in franchise history. You've got a banner out of it. Where do you even go from there? And I think the answer is pretty easy, right? It's the playoffs. But how you kind of level up in the postseason is kind of still up for debate for the Jets. And I think what we've seen to start is kind of a mixture of what I was a little bit concerned about, plus some things that I think are going to be fun to watch. We've had a number of key injuries already. You know, Dylan Sandberg, without him, things have been a little bit helter-skelter on the back end. The defense has not exactly looked how should I say, tip-top. Not really shocking. I mean, he's one of the best defenders in the league, and certainly a guy that the Jets really, really, really lean heavily on. So that's been an issue. I think the foot speed has been an issue. The nice thing about October is that this month we're probably not going to face too many top teams outside of like Dallas and Utah and maybe one other opponent. Unfortunately, I'm going to put the Islanders in the secondary category of difficulty of opponents. We're not likely to face a lot of teams that typically play the style the Jets just don't handle well. So, I'm not too worried. I will say, with the changes to the power play, the team overall getting older and slower, it's been a little bit strange. This team, I'm still trying to figure them out. I don't know if we'll really know until December. As guys get healthier, as we see what this team looks like and needs. Suffice it to say, I'm kind of expecting, the team to make the playoffs, but how we get there is maybe a little bit of a different story.
You mentioned Jonathan Toews. How does he look after all that time off? And is he, at this stage in his career, do you think, a legitimate 2C?
So he's been fine, I guess, is how I describe it. I haven't really noticed him a ton in the traditional sense. He's had a couple of really good passes. He probably could have gotten his first goal against the Stars, was a little unlucky in that game. But otherwise, like the defensive zone work, better just pretend that doesn't really exist. I think a lot of what is going to be noticeable with him is really just the foot speed. The processing speed's still there. The foot speed is okay. I just think ideally you have him in your bottom six. I think as a 2C, he's being asked to do a little more than you'd probably want. Again, he's been fine, but I think a lot of folks had this impression he was going to be, in the best shape of his life, coming back to be an impact level player, and maybe he gets there. But I think even if you asked him personally about it, he'd probably say, yeah, it's going to take time to get there. In preseason, he said, there was some good, some bad in some of my performances. And I think that's just what we're going to have to take from him. He's 37. He had long COVID. We don't really know how he's going to sort of ramp up over the next few weeks. But the Jets just don't really have anyone else that can play this position super well. So he'll have to do. And I think, as long as he gets good support from his teammates, like we've seen from Iafallo and most recently from Triberkov, I think the Jets can kind of lean on him for a little bit until they have a more permanent solution.
Obviously, you mentioned the injuries to the blue line. How big of an impact is that having on the fact that after a couple of games, and it's only 2 games, but Connor Hellebuck's numbers just don't look Hellebuck-esque?
The funniest thing is he gave up 5 goals and he still gave up less than expected against the Stars. Dallas just kind of spanked the Jets for about 40 minutes. So he's been about as good as you could ask, which tells you, the defense, it's not defending. Fleury Pionk was the second pairing and they just kind of got taken to the cleaners. Fleury, I appreciate that he tries hard, loves the game, all that fun stuff. But asking him to be a second pairing defender is probably a little bit above his pay grade. He's a third pairing guy, right? That's where you ideally want him. But the Jets don't live in a world of ideals. And I think right now, especially, they're seeing that they need external help. I don't think there's really any way of getting around that. I was not quite expecting it to be as bad as it's been. Colin Miller will be coming in because Fleury's now injured. So they just keep dropping like flies. Miller just should have been playing to begin with, but I think it's safe to say the blue line's pretty vulnerable. The guys that I thought the Jets could have leaned on, they don't seem to really have a preference for. They like the big guys, and I'm like, great, that's fine. Can they skate the puck out of the zone? And if they can't, well, good luck with that. So you've heard me talk about Logan Stanley over the years. He had a rough couple of games, but he did have one really big PK shift at the end of the Kings game that I think he deserves a lot of credit for. You're going to have moments like that because I think the broader sample is going to be a little on the rougher side for the next few weeks. They have to survive a good deal without Sandberg. So all I can say is best of luck to Helly.
What are the keys to success for this season? And, you mentioned, okay, they're probably going to make the playoffs, but how do you turn regular season success into playoff success?
Gosh, the stuff that I know that they need is just, I mean, there's only two ways to do it. Either you do a big trade or you tank. And we know the Jets ain't tanking. So, frankly, they just need to figure out first what they have on the farm. I know the Jets pool was kind of more in the B tier. You know, Lambert, Jibberkov, guys like that. They're nice depth pieces and middle six options. Not really ceiling raisers in the usual sense. But at this point, you know, the Jets are kind of in a position where they don't really make big blockbuster trades, and they don't seem to play as many of their prospects unless they're forced to. So I just don't really know what the plan is. You know, I've heard a lot of folks kind of say that the Jets are sort of on an Islanders track. Well, I would say probably more Lou Islanders than Darsh. I think Darsh, you know, he understands the position of the team. He's got them making some big draft acquisitions. For the Jets, I don't know if there's really a way to move beyond this. They have a great regular season team. Honestly, like the league, you know, if the valuation was different, what the Jets did with the President's Trophy would be considered more impressive. 82 games for a President's Trophy really is an extraordinary accomplishment, and yet because they can't win the cup, they're looked at as a lesser franchise, and it sucks. You know, it's a tough spot to be in. So, you know, I do feel for the Jets in some ways. But I also look at this upcoming season and really the trade deadline and stuff. These are where you need to start swinging. You keep telling people this is your competitive window. You just signed Kyle Connor to an 8-year, 12 million season deal. You know, now it's time to give the team the pieces to win. You've got your core locked up. Go out and grab some guys who can actually raise the ceiling of this team and get them to be a real deep run threat.
What positions are the priority? I mean, I'm assuming the blue line is where you start.
Everything. Everything is outside of goaltending. Everything is a need. They need a top 6 center. They probably need another top 6 winger. They need a top 4 defender. And you really only have a shot at maybe one of those from all 3 positions. So, you know, I think once Dylan Sandberg's healthy, the defense will look a lot more normal. But if that's what you're relying on, it does feel a little bit dicey. I used to think having a big forward would be a bigger upgrade. I kind of go back and forth. Like at full health, the forward is better. But if the Jets have another blue line injury, it's not looking good. So pick your favorite at this point. The Jets just have a lot of needs, and I think that's really going to be the story of the season. Is they'll be fine in a lot of areas, but I think for the playoffs, I'm setting very modest expectations. You know, they barely got out of the first round last year. They were 1.6 seconds away. I'm not sure that they necessarily have that to rely on this year. But maybe Hellebuck does something crazy. Maybe the Jets somehow, play some really amazing playoff hockey and surprise us all. I'd love to have my expectations upset, but I think for this season, this is not the year that I'm feeling, the year to go all in. I would look more at next year and the year after that.
All right. Well, we'll see how it all plays out. Harrison, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
We are on Locked On Winnipeg Jets, same as Locked On NHL, and you can follow us on Twitter at LO_Winnipeg Jets and me at HL Living Loco if you want to hear about how I love our Jets' current defense. But
all right, Harrison, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. You could find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank my guests. I want to thank Chris Micieli of Locked On Avalanche, Laura Saba of Locked On Canadiens, and Harrison Lee of Locked On Winnipeg Jets for joining me today. I'm Gil Martin. I host the Monday edition of Locked On NHL, and I co-host the Friday edition along with Rachel Donner. Don't forget, we are here every day, Monday through Saturday, bringing you the biggest stories from around the hockey world. So hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and thanks for listening to and watching the Locked On NHL podcast.